Good afternoon. We're going to be talking to you this afternoon about evolving your artificial intelligence program in your enterprise. My name is Medha Galal, I'm VP of Software Development. I've been at Appian for a little over 14 years. I've had many careers, including professional services and lately engineering. I have led inside of engineering the teams that have brought you the integration designer and the connected systems, along with my partner in crime.
Yeah, hi, I'm Jake Rank. I'm a Director of Product Management. I've been at Appian about 12 and a half years, so working alongside Medhat both in professional services and now in our engineering department, bringing things like integration, some of the solution stuff that Matt talked about this morning, and AI like we're going to talk about today.
All right. So many people think artificial intelligence is really scary. Well, not as scary as Marcus Wright in Terminator Salvation, hopefully, where he didn't know that he was actually a robot and he thought he was a human being. That's because we're very far off from artificial general intelligence. Now, when you think about artificial intelligence, some of the amazing advancement that you hear about today or read about in the news or in the market, including some of the recent conferences and papers that have been released on artificial intelligence, all of them actually belong into artificial narrow intelligence. That's because the models that are being used today doing amazing things like self-driving cars and robots on the assembly line and natural language processing and translation, speech to text, are all narrowly trained on specific data sets. And these models are unique to the set of tasks they do. They're very narrow in what they can do. And there's practically no model or no technique that is known out there that can generalize across all data sets to perform a number of multitasks. Now, I really like that report from Cognilytica to break down the evolution lifecycle that you would incur in the enterprise as you evolve your artificial intelligence program. I'm going to be talking about those 4 stages, from level 0 automation all the way up to autonomous optimization in the enterprise. But that's going to be the level set of what your journey would look like. Now, at level 0, you're bringing automation in the enterprise. In many cases, you're getting rid of spreadsheets, emails, shared drives and contents, and ad hoc collaboration where workers and workforce and knowledge workers actually walk around to try to resolve business process issues. And that's hopefully why you're here today. I mean, Appian is pretty good at this part. This is where you encode your business processes and rules and context into an efficient low-code application platform like Appian to bring about the efficiency to the workforce and the knowledge workers that you have in the enterprise. Now, you may augment that as well with robotic process automation. That's where you bring the bots and the robots to actually perform desktop automation tasks that may be very challenging to integrate today. And those together really bring a nice set of automation techniques to drive tremendous amount of efficiency in your business process and application. That's going to be key to the evolution of AI development in your enterprise. In this case, process and robots, really what they do best is help with broad tasks. They're fairly narrow in nature. They're very prescriptive. They do only what you tell them to do. No different than a typical program. Now, when you bring intelligence to automation, that's where a lot of power can happen. In this case, you've already digitized your business application, codified it in an application platform, and this is where you can use AI cognitive services that have been trained on large corpus of data available out there. Think things that are the size of Wikipedia articles or the IMDb or any other available data sets that are released by the government or available by Google or Amazon. These AI services are uniquely trained to do specific tasks, as I mentioned earlier, to really augment the human set of tasks that you have in your digital automation techniques. Now, these training sets obviously are only available from large enterprises that have collected a lot of data already, but it does help the rest of us because we don't really have to think too much about how to use these services. They become more or less an integration technique. The next step, which is level 2 really, is where you bring context to these trained models. There's a technique in artificial intelligence called transfer learning where you may take an AI service that has been trained already on a large corpus of data and really augment it with your enterprise data. Say you're in telecommunication, transportation, or any other specific industry, you may have very specific policies and technical terms that when the AI is trained on, it will bring a level of accuracy and precision that would improve that augmented task in the enterprise. Remember, in both those levels of automation, level 1 and level 2, the AI is doing a very specific task somewhere in the middle of the rest of the workflow that your workforce works with already. But it really is the first step where you start bringing machine learning and data science into the enterprise to use your data to drive that accuracy and efficiency. And that's level 2, where you bring the context to the AI services. They're no longer generic. They're very unique to you. Now, level 3 is considered the nirvana state, This is where you're not just training AI for a specific task that is also personalized and contextual to your business. This is where you set the AI kind of free in the entire workflow system that you have in place. You may actually bring together a number of trained models using your data to optimize everything from UI flows to workflows and routing, all the way down to what click or what's the next best action, or even the next best task that you might want to recommend to your knowledge worker as well. In this case, you're really letting AI optimize the entire process almost end to end. Now, the key aspect of level 3 here is you don't have to go back to your application development team every time you want to make a tweak, where you have to go back and codify those new heuristics, those new rules, and those new processes into your application. AI takes care of that because it's always evolving and always learning and always tweaking based on a user behavior, whether that user is a customer or your knowledge workforce. So just to recap the level set of the different levels that we have here. At level 0, you're encoding your enterprise and your business processes best as you know it to automate and get rid of waste in process automation, desktop automation. It's fairly applicable to very descriptive business processes that you already know. It doesn't necessarily uncover new insights except those who are taking a unique look at the data that is aggregated across the enterprise. So if you use record-centric design, you can bring that level of insight and then you can improve the process, but you still have to go back to a development team. There is a lot of benefit if you actually use pre-trained cognitive services available from most cloud vendors. They're actually available as open source tools as well. They help with wrought activities that may have been only uniquely possible with human beings only a few years ago. Activities like translation can take forever. If you receive massive documents that are multi-pages long and hundreds of them come every day, you may have to outsource that to a business process outsourcer and then wait days and days and days before the information comes back so you can proceed with the next step in the process. Now, at level 2, you're actually using your unique data sets to make those AI services even smarter in the enterprise. And at level 3, of course, you're unleashing ML all across the board to optimize not only specific tasks, but the workflow and the UIs and the actions and activities of both bots and human beings very fluidly in a production system. Now, in that last stage, you're really bringing the full gamut of machine learning complexity, its pipelines, its own software development lifecycle. Things like DevOps and continuous delivery become essential to making this happen really quickly. A/B testing, lean user experience, and all sorts of optimization for the process have to be baked into the way that you build a model, train the model, validate the model, and then evaluate whether it's delivering the precision and accuracy that you need, and off you go and optimize again. Now, I'm going to stop here for a second because that's a lot of background. I wanted to know for the purpose of learning, for those who are with us today, no shame, we're all trying to learn from each other. Who's doing level 0? I hope to see a whole lot of hands raised. That's why you're here, hopefully, right? Okay. How many people are doing level 1? A few, that's good. You're going to love the rest of the slides. How many people are doing level 2? Custom machine learning, have data scientists and machine learning experts. Great. Anyone doing level 3? I didn't think so. All right, so that's kind of the level set, but let's talk about the realities of AI in the enterprise. And I promise you there will be examples and demos later. This is not going to be all slideware. So Gartner actually stated in one of their recent reports that 37% of organizations have already implemented AI in some form. Now, some form is a very loose term. It may mean anything from intelligent automation all the way to pre-trained services and beyond. And that the AI adoption just over the last 12 months has tripled, which is quite amazing if you think about it. And it's only going to increase. So all of this is just positive to say that AI is really gaining massive interest and adoption inside of the enterprise. Now, an MMC Ventures report also stated that large organizations, 2/3 of large organizations are planning on deploying some form of AI in the next 24 months. Not to mention, which I don't have on the slide, that the expected level of investment in AI is going to top $70 billion just in the next few years. Now, none of this is without any challenges, of course. We wouldn't be here. The skills gap is really, there was a lot of concerns with AI in general, but the skills gap stands out as the most interest or concern for the enterprises. That's because there's not enough machine learning experts available in the market today, and most even big players like Google, Microsoft, and Amazon had to build their own training programs and offer courses to their software engineers, their business users to know how to frame the problem. data scientists that know how to wrangle the data, and back-end systems that bring it all together under a machine learning pipeline, which is really a major concern if you're trying to launch that. That is a huge impediment today. And in that journey, if you try to start with the end of hiring machine learning, everyone probably heard some boss say, can you give me some AI today? And what are you trying to solve, right? I mean, I got the same question too. So that's really a big question, not only because of the technical complexity, but if you think about all the topics today about fairness, ethics, diversity, privacy, and security, you really need to have expertise in multi-dimensions to bring good full-fledged AI in the enterprise. So AI is simple, right? No one said that yet. So with the hands raised, I think it codifies what we stipulated today is that most organizations are either just embarking on a journey to digitally transform their business, or they're just using pre-trained cognitive services, or just about to dabble with a little bit of data science to make sure that those models are a little bit more accurate.
So MedHat just gave a great overview of the 4 levels that we want to talk about today in terms of your journey on the AI path to maturity. And he also talked about, at the strategic level, some of the benefits that we're looking to get out of this, as well as some of the challenges, and we'll dig into that a little bit more. I want to go through each of the levels and talk a little bit more with some specific examples, some specific use cases, to give you guys some help, and then MedHat will come back and talk a little bit about more what else we're doing to help. So when we think about making your AI program more mature, applying AI at a mature level to your organization, what's the secret sauce? At level 0, we're going to talk about just encoding business knowledge, and I'll go into that in more depth. Level 1, we talked about pre-trained AI services. Level 2, custom trained services that you guys have built for your own business. And then level 3, assessing your need to go to that final level of self-optimization and how you can build your application in order to enable that level of optimization. So level 0, encoding your knowledge. I have good news here. You guys are all here at an Appian conference. And I assume that means that most, if not all of you, are already using Appian, which means you've already actually started on this journey. You already have encoded your business knowledge into a solution that allows for digital automation. You've gotten out of paper, you've gotten out of spreadsheets, you've incorporated everything into a single source with records. You've got processes that are automating in a repeatable fashion. You've got integrations that pull in data automatically, and you've brought it all together into a user experience that allows your end users to take advantage of all those back-end capabilities, again, in a repeatable way, not in an ad hoc way, but in the same way that's repeatable and can be optimized. Now, it's great that we can do that, and it's very important that you start at that level, but that optimization requires a lot of manual steps, right? You can build a process and you can optimize it manually. One example here would be, let's say you have an email coming into your organization. Maybe it's a product support case, or maybe it's an insurance claims email with an attachment or something else. We've been able to automate that process, right? We've brought it into Appian, and that's great because now you know that that process is going to operate the same way all the time as opposed to the old way of ad hoc process management. So say that they have an attachment. I've taken a picture of a claim form or some other collateral that's associated with what I'm submitting. And you may need to digitize that, right? That could be a picture of a file, not an actual electronic document. You may need to it's a scan of a PDF. I mean, everybody gets scans of PDF, scans of documents, right, instead of an actual text PDF. So the first thing you might need to do is take advantage of the information that's actually in that document. You can't do that as long as it's in an image format or a scanned format. You need to take that and turn it back into text that you can use in a digital process. And that can take a team, right? MedHat mentioned you may have someone that you're outsourcing that to, or you may have somebody that you have internally, but either way, it's costing you time and costing delay in terms of servicing your customers in this case. Then you may need to do translation. If you're operating in multiple languages, you need to worry about a whole variety of people that might be sending you context for your business. But your support team, maybe they only speak one language, or you're ramping up and you want to have 24/7 coverage all the way around the globe. Do all those people always speak all of the language that you need to serve for your customers? So you may need to do outside translation, have another team. Then in order to figure out where should I send this? Should I send it to the product support team, or is this more of an account issue? You need somebody that can look at the context and say, how am I classifying that? Finally, you can actually send it to your support team to have them respond. And again, if you're doing multiple languages, you need to translate that on the way out. So there's a lot of advantage here in terms of the fact that we've brought this process into Appian, but there's still a lot of inefficiencies that we can see. So that's where we start to think about how can we apply pre-trained services to our automated process. So let's look back at that same thing and think about it in a different way, taking advantage of pre-trained services where we're looking at services that are trained on a broad corpus of data, not specific to your business, but general knowledge. So we could take that transcription and the team that's doing it, we could replace it by a document OCR service. So in this case, we're using Google Vision, but there are a number of other ones, any of them that you can integrate into this process. Now we've taken that team and we've made them available for something else, and we've reduced that delay. Same thing on translation, both in and out, right? If we detect that that attachment or the email content itself has to be translated, we can detect the language and translate it as an optional step to, again, reduce the need for that external team and reduce the delay. Classification, previously done by a team manually. Now we can look at that and sort it into hundreds of different categories based on natural language processing. And at the same time, we can get sentiment analysis. We can also get things like entity extraction. So I can get a jump start on how am I going to serve this particular customer at this particular time, and how urgently do I need to serve that customer, because if I detect sentiment, I can route based on that information now. So whereas the first version that we looked at had the 4 manual tasks, all adding potential for delay, all adding potential for added overhead of your business process, now we've used simply pre-trained services to eliminate those steps and turn that into something that has straight through processing right to your support team and right back to the customer. So lots of delay lost there. So here's a quick example. Now in this case, maybe I'm traveling, I'm in Madrid, I was at a cafe and someone stole my phone. And I had one of those nice phone insurance plans. So now I need to go submit for my insurance claim to get reimbursed on my phone. And I went to the Madrid police office and I reported this. They gave me a police report that I can use, and I've attached that to this form. Now that police report is in Spanish, so I'm sending that in, and I'm not sure if that's going to be a problem for them or not. As the customer, I don't really care. I'm going to send that off. And now you can see if we go over, that's going to go be sent to Appian. And we're going to receive the email, and it's going to start a process in Appian. It's going to start that process that we saw earlier. So if I look at actually monitoring that process, we'll see what happened. So we received the email. We detected that it did have that attachment. So we've OCR'd that attachment, and we've gotten the text back from that using Google Vision. Then we're detecting the language. Now, in this case, the document was in Spanish, but the actual email was in English, so it routes intelligently and goes to the classification, where we're able to apply the sentiment scoring on the content of my email and then route it to the support case. So as an agent, I would be in the normal support queue. I get a task in Appian now. And you can see here at the dashboard, we've actually jumped you right into an experience where you have all of that additional information from the process that we just looked through, where I can say, here's the sentiment that was extracted from it. In this case, it's a neutral sentiment, which maybe means I don't have to do any special processing. I've also identified certain things about the document that was attached. That it's a police report, and I've used the entity extraction to identify what is this about. I've got the email body right in line so I can see quickly. And if I accept that task, I can actually now also show the email attachment. So here I've got, there's the scanned version of the police report, and then on the other side, the OCR version where I have the text. So that if I want to be able to extract any other intelligence from that text, I can, or if I just want to read it in English, I can. And now, because we've already done all that analysis, I can actually have a standard response template that already includes information about the entity extraction, such as it's about your phone. In this case, because the sentiment was neutral, I'm not going to worry about creating a lot of extra overhead for myself as the agent. I'm just going to send that default response back to the customer. Now, if it was necessary, I could have translated that on the way out as well. So that shows how we've taken advantage in the agent user experience of all those things that we've applied from pre-trained services as we went through the process. And it was very easy. Nobody else had to touch it before that support agent touched it. So at level 2, level 1 gives you a lot of advantage. There's a lot of value derived from the pre-trained services. But what do we go to level 2? Now, the first thing I want to talk about at level 2 is why. Why are we going from where we saw with pre-trained services that were pretty easy to integrate? Why are we coming now over to level 2? And there's 2 main reasons that I want to talk about. One is that it does enable additional use cases. There are certain things where you can't really build a pre-trained service that's specific to you, and this is often in cases where it takes your historical data in order to create the model. So a chatbot that relies on things that your customers have talked about in the past, or predictive rules that rely on your historical data. Those are things that you're not going to get from a pre-trained service, and therefore you need to think about training your own models for those. The other reason that you might want to do a trained model is that you might find that those pre-trained services are not accurate enough for your use case. Now, we showed in that example completely replacing the human element of a lot of those activities. You might find that you're not able to completely replace the human activity because pre-trained models don't give you a precise and accurate answer in cases like a specific document template. Right? You may need to have specific training on a document template that's specific to your business. If you know that you typically handle 5 particular documents, you can get better accuracy on those documents by training on those specific formats. Or if you're doing translation, but your business relies on a lot of acronyms, a lot of technical jargon or specific terms, a generic translation model may not do well on those kinds of conversations, and you may need to train your own specific model. So just 2 examples of where better accuracy comes into play with trained models. Now, before I showed you guys the model where we triaged the incoming email before we handed it off to the support team, here we're now looking at a revised version of that sub-process where we actually hand it off to the support team. You saw earlier when I handled the task that was coming out of the normal support queue based on a message priority routing that you took into account the classification that I applied and the sentiment analysis from the body of the email. That's a very simple way to do it. We have one priority queue, one normal support queue. We could have many queues. You could have lots of queues based on subject. You could do many other things, obviously, in an automated process within Appian. What I want to highlight here is that we've added another layer where we've assessed whether or not, in this case, maybe an automated response is actually the fastest and best way to respond to this particular request. So if we can detect that an automated response is available, I can route it to a service to give that automated response. And this is based on trained models off of my data. I know what context my customers might be asking about. I can train a chatbot model to tell me whether or not I can give a response and then give that response. So here I'm going to send another email to Appian. In this case, I want to know when Appian World is, which maybe seems like a silly question right now, but last week I wasn't so sure, and that's when I recorded this video. So I'll send off the email to Appian just saying, hey, when is Appian World? And just like before, this email will go off. Appian will receive the email using that same triage process that we saw. Only now this time, it's going to be straight through processing. And you'll notice that the process is already completed here. There's no active tasks. It didn't get routed to an agent. If we go now actually review what happened inside that process model for the support team, you'll see that we detected an automated response was possible for that type of a question. We recognized that. And we routed it over to Microsoft Q&A chatbot, which is an integration to a Microsoft service that basically allows you to upload a frequently asked questions style document, and it will automatically extract from that document the questions and the answers so that it can answer any of those questions automatically or similar questions. It'll actually fill in the gaps. And as a result, I can get a straight through processed email response that reminds me that Appian World is May 13th through 15th, and that's why I'm here with you guys today. Now, there are a number of other services out there that help you guys build your trained models. So this is an area that's been invested a lot by some of the bigger players, Microsoft, AWS, and Google. One example here, we actually announced an integration with Azure's Language Understanding, or LUIS service last year. And this is another example of a way that you can build a chatbot. And what you'll see here is in their interface, when you're building that model, they ask you to specify a number of what they call utterances, which is just phrases that your customers might use to describe a particular ask or a particular problem. In this case, people are asking to reserve a conference room. So this might be an internal help desk application, for example, and I want to be able to automatically tell people, book this conference room, I need catering for this event, any of the things that most companies have to deal with in their organization. So all I have to do is enter a few ways that people might ask that particular question. And then they use natural language processing to fill in the gaps. They'll take those statements and they'll expand that using natural language to be able to handle any other similar statements and still get the right answer of, okay, this is a question about reserving a conference room. A similar example is Google Dialogflow. How many of you have used Dialogflow or have been interested in it? All right, a few people. So this is another example of what we call an intent extraction service, where you look at something that someone says and you try to figure out what are they actually asking for and tie that to something that we can then take action on in Appian or any other automated process. So a very similar style here. They've got an interface where you can send in training phrases. They'll use natural language processing to take those phrases and build a model for you, which you have to train. And then I can say something like, talk to agent. Right? You can imagine that I'm chatting with somebody and I say, oh, I'm tired of chatting with this bot. I want to talk to an agent. Now, that wasn't one of the statements that I trained it on explicitly, but it's recognized because it's so similar in a natural language sense to those other statements that it's going to match the same intent, which is transferring to an agent. So in this case, I was able to try it. I got the right answer. Google has some other services, such as AutoML. Has anybody used an AutoML service? Okay, not as many. AutoML is applied to a number of Google services, all with the intent of making it easier to train your own model. So we're still at level 2 here. We're still talking about you guys training models with your own data. This is a whole suite of services that's designed to make it easier to do that. And the way that they do that is you still provide the data. In this case, I've uploaded a CSV file with statements labeled with specific outcomes, but they've applied specific rules and other sets to that to tell me, yeah, this looks like a pretty good data set. I wouldn't have known that otherwise. I'm not a data scientist. I didn't know that. They're telling me, based on analyzing just the data that I've uploaded, whether or not I'm going to get a good model out of this data set. Now, once I actually train it, they're also going to give me statistics on how good that model actually was, so kind of a before and after picture. They'll tell me the precision and the recall for that model, and they actually give you tools where you can tweak where you want to be on that precision recall curve. And if things like precision recall curve are confusing to you, that's a good segue into some of the challenges that come in at level 2. Because now that you're talking about not using pre-trained services, but using services that you have to train yourself, you own a lot more of the responsibility. It's you who have to provide the data. You need to make sure that the data is free of bias. You need to make sure that the data is representative of all of your categories that you want to be able to label, or the corpus that you want to be able to apply to. That also means you need to have someone who understands your data. And this is where data scientists come in, right? So if you haven't figured out why you ever need a data scientist, this is why you would need a data scientist. They're the ones that are going to handle all of your data in this fashion. It also means that you need to train and then retrain to stay up to date, right? Things change. Your data from 10 years ago is not going to be the same data that you need today. Your data from a month ago might not be the data that you need today. It depends on your business. So retraining becomes a part of this. That means that you can't just train once and be good. You have to consider this as a machine. You have to think of it as a system. It fits into your developer lifecycle. You have to think about what cadence you're going to be retraining on and how are you going to manage that. So all of these things lend it to, at level 2, there's more responsibility on you. But that doesn't mean it can't be done. We actually showed an example last year, which we called Mr. T. We introduced Mr. T at Appian World last year. And Mr. T, it stands for triage. T is for triage. We use this in our own engineering department to control when you guys open a support case or when we have another enhancement request. We've got lots of teams in our engineering department, and we don't know who to route all of those things to based on the functional ownership of our product. Mr. T tells us. We've trained him on all of the historical data that we've done all product development over the years, and he can tell us, oh, that looks like it belongs to one of these teams over here, or that one belongs to the DevOps team over here. And so that takes away a human triage step. This is exactly like the process example that I showed earlier. There was a manual triage step that we replaced with an automated triage step by training up Mr. T in our department. Now, here we are a year later, and yeah, we're still using Mr. T. It's actually been very successful over the last year in terms of maintaining that manual, eliminating the manual triage. We did upgrade him to AutoML. We used AutoML and created a new model, and we've started retraining him. We retrain Mr. T every Sunday, first Sunday of the month, based on the last month's worth of historical data for our entire department. And we use an Appian process model to do that. So we have a scheduled start, and we use Appian to orchestrate all of the services between AutoML, all the APIs that we need. That means that he stays up to date. So Mr. T knows that when we shut a team down, or start a team up, or we transfer responsibility from the product from one team to another, he learns that transition, and he stays accurate over time. So that's been very helpful for us. So that was level 2, and now I know that we said there weren't many people at level 3, but I do want to give an example of what a level 3 application could look like and what problems it can solve. One thing that this is good at is when you start to scale and you want to optimize at scale. So if you imagine a flat task list, that works when you have 7 tasks. You can trust your user to pick from this list and self-optimize which tasks they're going to do first. But the ability for users to be able to do that starts to break down as the scale of the tasks grows. Right? I do not want my users trying to pick one task out of 2,500 to do today, to do right now. That's just not something that you can reasonably expect anybody to do. So instead, think about a design of an application that pushes the tasks to them at that time. Here is the task you should do next. Here are the 3 tasks that you need to get done today out of however many that there are. I'm not even going to show you the list. I'm just going to tell you that you need to do this task. So this allows us to replace the time or priority, fixed concept priority-based task lists with a machine learning model that predicts what the next best task is going to be and assigns that out to the right user. So now you've got the machine telling you what work to do and in what order to do it, when it should be done, and it's going to determine that priority and assignment over time, and it's going to be retrained over time. As the model retrains, you've already have an application that is automatically going to get smarter as that model is retrained. So as the model retrains itself, it actually operationally optimizes your entire business.
Thanks, Jake. That was a great demonstration examples. Hopefully you've enjoyed that. So to wrap it up, you've seen the various stages in AI evolution, you've known about the challenges, and hopefully you're anxious and hungry to get started. And we're here to help. This is why we announced Appian AI today at Appian World. There was no accident, of course, that we had it both on main stage and this breakout presentation. And really most of this is because starting is really hard. Not only do you have to contend with the experiences and the expertise that you have to hire and train on, but you still have to contend of how to make that all operational when you just want to get started. With Appian AI, you don't have to worry about third-party contracts. You already have a contract with Appian, so this is included with all new customers that will sign up, and existing customers can just sign a simple order form for some additional pass-through, but you don't have to toil between departments in your organization to do so. There's no setup or management or administration of the cloud. You don't have to figure out the credentials, the security model, the project structure, or which services to enable or who to give it to. We're going to do all of that for you. We just want you to get your API keys and service accounts just as you get Appian license today through your support channel directly. And more importantly, even though we called it the standard tier as a free, we're actually more free than anything you get from a cloud vendor. We're covering additional costs just to make sure that you can make use of these pre-trained services and take it all the way to production. We didn't want to give you a toy of a free service that you can't use in production today. So you go ahead and do that. And if you really succeed with the pre-trained cognitive services and you need more volume, we also contended with making available competitive paid tiers that you can't even get with Google directly. So we wanted to offer that to you to make sure that you continue on that journey without dealing with any of the friction or the hassle of setting it up yourself. It's also very flexible to use, so the combination of services we have, we understand that your use cases will be different and they will vary and will be unique to you. So at any given level, you can use more of a certain service and less of another services, of course. There is a cap on the entire free tier, of course, but we don't know if you need more translation or more natural language or more image and text document extraction in your case. We simply want you to deal with your business problem. Get your keys and get started as quickly as you can, and that's what we're offering, why we're offering Appian AI. So very quickly, the services that are available to you today are Google Cloud Translate, and I encourage you to Google up how good Google Cloud Translate is. It's the top translation service available, and pre-trained model covers the most number of languages available of all the cloud providers, and it does both language detection as well as translation across dozens of languages, of course. And you've got the Google Natural Language, which does sentiment, entity extraction, syntax understanding as well. And of course, Google Cloud Vision, which does about 11 different features, including label, object detection, safe images from the web, as well as document extraction and OCR from various documents. I don't think anyone liked how that police report actually looked from a quality perspective. It's very hard to read, but Google is actually pretty good with that. Because these services actually require some temporary upload of these massive amounts of data that you'll send to the cloud. We also throw in Google Cloud Storage for good measure. So think about that email triage. Almost everything that we've shown you today is only the set of services that we're making free for you to get started. There's no excuse. And we made it all free for you so that you will be stopped at nothing to just get started on your own AI journey. So a quick recap. AI can be very useful in enterprise. It's very hard to get started. There is very little expertise, and putting a machine in place may be daunting and fraught with frictions and challenges. So we encourage you to start small. Everyone is doing that. If you think about those 2/3 of organizations are going live with machine learning, they're also starting that journey that way, and grow with your needs and complexity as you realize some benefits of using machine learning in your enterprise. And we're here to help you on that journey. And last but not least, you can sign up for Appian AI starting today. You can talk to your account exec if you're an existing customer. If you're a new customer, it will be actually baked into your contract already. And Jake and I would really love to hear from you on your use cases. If you use these services to actually bring tremendous benefit to your business, we want to learn about it. This is the beginning of the journey of many, and we'd like to go on that journey with you and evolve with you. If you needed to offer additional services or additional help in understanding what business use cases you're trying to do, we may expand this in the future just to make the friction go away so you can get started and make value of it. Of course, when you're ready, feel free to snap that QR code so you can take the intelligent automation survey to know where you are if you want to test where you are. And of course, if you're on the Appian website as well, do take a look and read The Future of Work by IDC. It does bring the totality of digital transformation, RPA, and machine learning in enterprise in a very nice white paper. That's it for our show.